Nolte. I don't even know who that person is. And so we went through this exercise every single time. So I took this roadmap of him. I had to prove that, okay, what's my elements here? So what do I need to prove on this case? So he's charged with theft. What's some things that I would need to prove on that? He took the money, right? So that's one element. He took the money without permission, so that's pretty easy. I'm going to have the company come in, testify that they never gave him permission to write these checks to himself. They never gave him permission to then wire this money down to Costa Rica. So those are the elements. But there's another element. What's another element that I have to prove? So I heard it, identity, right? I have to prove this is Steve Nolte, not George France. So my theory in that case was the secret life of Steve Nolte. And then we reinforced over and over. So we brought in his mom, who had not seen him since 1997. And she says, we bring her in, and said, she's in a wheelchair, and we turn her around and we face her to him. Says, who is that? That's my son. And then it gets even worse for him. Because we had the FBI do a DNA sample on him. And so we had criminalists from the FBI laboratory that came in and said that it's a 99% chance that Miss Nolte is this person's mother. Then it got even worse. So again, we're reiterating this theme here. It got even worse. We brought in the mother of the infant that died in 1969. And we asked her, what happened to your son, George France? Well, the question actually was, is this person in the courtroom, do you know who this person is? No, I never met this person before in my life. And then the next question is, who is George France? George France is my son, who never made it out of the hospital. Died within 3 days of birth. Never even made it out of the hospital. So you're saying this person right here is not your son? Yes, that is not my son. I don't even know who this person is. And so we used that theory of the secret life that he was living. We brought in his passport. We showed all these exotic places that he went, that he traveled all over the world, that he lived it up. And we used that theory to convey to the jury why this was an important case. And that's the same thing when you're conveying that to the judge. You want to show that he thought about this, that he planned this, that he went out and he did certain things. Buying a knife ahead of time. And then taking that knife and stabbing his fiancée multiple times. That he didn't care about her life because his feelings were more important than her life. That's probably a theme that I'd use in something like this. That he was willing to act because he thought something and his actions were more important than her life. And because of it, she's dead. So you'll have the opportunity to read through this. And so I encourage you, as you're reading through it, come up with that roadmap. Okay, what do I have to prove? So what's the elements? So here we have a charge of first-degree murder. So the charging document is going to read, on or about August 12th, defendant Juan Castro committed first-degree murder by intentionally or knowingly engaging in conduct with premeditation that caused the death of Maria Flores in violation of sections 10-105 and 10-106, a class 1 felony. So that's your charging document. So your roadmap's going to take, okay, we have to prove what are elements of first degree murder, there was an intent, so it was done intentionally. So it wasn't just that she slipped and fell and she ended up dying. That he intentionally caused his conduct with premeditation. So what does premeditation mean? That he thought through the process, he planned it, and that he then caused the death of this person. So those are the three elements: intentional or knowingly engaged in conduct, premeditation, and then in fact did cause the death of this person. So when we're looking at a roadmap for this, or we're looking at coming up with our theory, we want to tailor it to those elements. So when you're reading over it, think about, okay, what's the what, when, here, what, when, why, where, and how. So where did this occur? How did it occur? Why did it occur? When did it occur? And that gives you, if you can answer those questions, that gives you your roadmap. So you want to be able to answer, as you're formulating that roadmap, you want to answer those questions as to those specifics. So you want to be able to say, who did this? So we want to be able to say the defendant did this. What did he do? He caused the death of this person. When? On August 12th, he caused the death of this person. Where? It was at their house. And how? He stabbed her with a knife. So that gives you a pretty clear roadmap. If you're able to answer those 5 questions, who, what, when, where, and how, if you take that for your elements, that's usually a good way of being able to develop your roadmap. Because you're able to say, okay, it's my defendant, this is when it took place, this is where it took place, this is why it took place, and then this is how. And then, to then take that roadmap, your theory, and then how to create a theme out of that. So the one that I like to use for the theme is the why. That's going to give you, a lot of times, that's going to give you a good theme. Why did this person do this? Why did he kill her? Because that's usually the most important reason. That's the most important thing to look at. Was it because she owed him money? Was it because there has to be a motive? You don't necessarily always have to prove motive, but you want to be able to, why did this person do this? Why did they act this way? Why did they go out and commit this heinous crime of murder? And so being able to answer that why question is usually going to give you your theme in the case. I do the same thing for not only for my position, but I also turn around and do the same thing for the other side. And so I try to anticipate, if I was hired as the defense counsel, what would I want to argue? Well, I'm going to argue that Mr. Castro, he's a victim in this case. He came home from work, he found his fiancée, who he loves, murdered. And instead of being able to grieve, he has to go through this process of being accused of killing his wife. When all the evidence doesn't add up, he's the victim, not the defendant. So then, you kind of take these counter arguments, and then you want to say, okay, how can I rebut those counter arguments? And so that's something you're going to be looking at during that too, is, okay, how do I, all right, this is what their probably defense is going to be, how do I rebut that? And you'll be able to see kind of throughout this case, kind of both sides of this equation. And that's always the interesting thing. I think that's the interesting thing about trials is, I wasn't there when this crime occurred. You know, and that's something I didn't see. I didn't get to personally watch this. The judge didn't get to personally watch this. We don't know exactly what happened. We're limited by the evidence that we're given. Wouldn't it be so much easier, like it's like on TV? You know, have you ever watched Law and Order or some of those criminal shows where you get to see it take place? You get to see how this crime was committed, and then you get to see the attorneys go in there and argue it. You know, isn't that great? I get to know what actually happened. And so I think having a situation where we don't know, we weren't there. None of us are ever going to be present when we're arguing a case. You know, if we were, then we're a witness, and we're probably not be able to do it. So we're never going to have a situation where we know all the facts. So we're limited by that evidence. And crimes don't happen in a vacuum, so to speak, in the sense that there's always going to be surrounding circumstances. But what you want to do is be able to get as much evidence to show, and just as Demi was saying, we're never going to have absolute certainty. There's only a few things that are absolutely certain. We know the sun is going to rise in the morning. Absolute certainty. That doesn't